Hey everybody, this is Courtney and you're listening to my podcast, Salt and Sage, Conversations with a Psychic Medium. Thank you so much for being here. Today, I really want to talk about our chakras in a way that really kind of helps to understand how they impact our daily lives, our relationships, our workspaces, just all of the various identities and roles that we play, hold, move through. So our chakras are basically our energy centers up and down our spine. There are a lot. We're going to focus on the 7 main ones. This is our emotional memory, our spiritual wisdom, our intuition, our creativity, and our energetic flow. And we all know what it feels like to be in the flow. Like maybe it's been a while since you felt that ease. Maybe it's been, since this morning. Maybe you're in it right now. Maybe you're really flowing right now. Maybe you're feeling a little bit not flowy. You feel like something else is going on. Maybe there's a little bit of an imbalance. Maybe there's a little bit of an overactive kind of feeling with you. It's like I'm not quite myself. I can't quite put my finger on it. So we're going to kind of get into what actually happens when our chakras aren't flowing. And again, don't think of it as like something out there, like this kind of like strange to understand thing. This is our inner workings. It's our inner map. And it really is a beautiful way to understand your emotional life. So think of it like that. Think of it as, like we have that feeling of balance. We know what it's like when things kind of are, you can kind of just breathe easy. It's not always, no one is perfectly balanced all of the time. But this is a really beautiful way to understand ourselves and understand like how we're living, how we're moving through our days. So basically, if you think about it, chakras are our energy centers. And when they become frozen or blocked or overactive, it's because our systems like basically needed to learn how to do that to keep us safe and protected. And so it's an interesting kind of dynamic to think about the fact that our chakras are actually reacting to our inner workings, and our inner workings are actually impacting like the flow of not just the energy centers, but those energy centers impact other things. So imbalances come from wounds, whether that's from childhood or recent wounds, unmet needs, trauma, breakups, betrayal, rage, unexpressed, even like loss, of course, and chronic stress, sometimes over functioning, sometimes deeper things like being the strong one, keeping the peace, emotional neglect, which oftentimes means abandoning yourself and people pleasing and putting other people's needs ahead of your own, which is also related to ignoring your intuition and living in survival mode. Excuse me, because we are not regulated when we are overcompensating, or when we are doing things that are out of alignment, when we know in our hearts we should be saying this or doing this and we don't. Don't beat yourself up. We're human. We all do it. But our energy reacts before our mind does, if that makes sense. So it's not like we're broken. It's not like we can't be fixed. It's not like we're going to be unbalanced forever. But this idea of feeling off is usually, something we can all understand. So chakras basically, like, if you think about each one, they have various impacts. And this is like the really deep part of knowing who we are. So when you listen to me kind of share about each chakra, you might feel a little, ooh, like that's me. That happens to me all the time, or I can relate to that. And perhaps like in the past, perhaps now, perhaps in the future, you'll feel some of these things. So just be kind of open to the information. And then, of course, you can ask me any questions. You can message me at salt_and_sage_ is my Instagram. And that's probably the easiest way to just kind of like ask me a question or share something or, get into whatever it is that you'd like to discuss. So let's talk about our root chakra. Our root chakra actually starts below our feet, but think of it as feet to hips. Think about it as this idea of kind of just being rooted and being grounded and feeling safe. Our root chakra is all about safety, stability, belonging, and survival. So if you oftentimes feel like disconnected from people, if you feel like you don't fit in, if you feel unsafe, if you feel like you're clinging as a partner or a friend, or you're pushing away, if you have any fears, the biggest fear that comes up for me right now, as I'm thinking through this, is the fear of abandonment. Maybe even the fact that you stay in relationships that feel familiar but not healthy. All of this is kind of this idea of not feeling safe. We're doing things, and that could be this like maybe overreacting to something. We're kind of playing small. Even as a parent, perhaps you're overprotective. And again, you guys know I don't love using the word over or too, T-O-O, too much to describe myself or others, but we all know what it means when we are, we're all protective. We all can go into protective, mama, papa bear modes, whatever, if you're a parent. But at the same time, like when we're kind of afraid, and that impacts the children and that impacts our parenting, and we're doing things because we are worried or nervous, that is different than intuition and, logical kind of like thinking. So if you parent from fear instead of a grounded presence, if at work you're kind of just afraid, again, that playing small, playing it safe, there's nothing wrong with being safe and grounded and secure, of course. But if you don't take risks out of fear, you stay in jobs long after they drain you. As a child, for like yourself, if you're a son or a daughter, you feel responsible for everyone's emotional safety. So all of these things really do impact, of course, the way we live, the way we decide things, the way we communicate. Choosing the safe option doesn't necessarily mean choosing the aligned option. And that's really important when you think about your root chakra. So how do you heal your root chakra? If you're listening to this and you're like, dang, like I am afraid a lot, more than I realized, the best thing to do to kind of heal that root is to really think about grounding techniques. And that could be through food, through standing in the grass, sitting on the ground, having a really structured routine. Some people really love structure because it makes them feel safe. It's predictable and it's reliable. And that might be what you're craving, what you're needing. Breath work, financial stability work. If you have a root chakra that's not necessarily flowing freely, it's possible that you are in victim mode with your finances. Habits are repeating over and over and over, year after year, decade after decade, because you're just like either feeling like that's not going to happen to me. I'm not worthy of that. I'm not the type of person that gets what they want. All of these things you might be saying. And building safety inside of your body. How does it feel to be safe inside of your own regulated nervous system? And if you can't answer that or you don't know, then you probably need or want to kind of start looking into getting rooted and balancing your root chakra. So your sacral chakra, oh my gosh, this is just above, your root, just below your belly button. There's so much going on in all of these energy centers in a relationship. If your sacral chakra is not quite balanced, you are definitely going to be avoiding intimacy or craving it really intensely. And again, there is zero judgment. This is simply observations. This is feeling something's off. This is knowing I don't necessarily want to live like this, or this doesn't feel sustainable. It doesn't feel like me. I feel like I'm performing or pretending. I'm losing my spark and my passion, my desire. Again, it doesn't mean it's forever. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. There are other factors that contribute to this, of course. But your sacral chakra is going to be all about that passion. And something that, I think is interesting, like as a parent, if you're emotionally exhausted or you're losing your sense of joy, your sense of self in parenting, it's possible you have a little bit of an imbalance here as well. Maybe you're even like a really creative person who's feeling burned out. who does not have the inspiration at this moment. And sometimes that leads to resentment because you're like, dang, I used to be so blank, blank, blank. And this person took it away, or this job took it away, or this timeline took it away, or this month took it away, or these, job situations took it away. Whatever it is, like resentment builds when you are off balance, and your sacral chakra wants you to make decisions out of like wanting to, like not out of obligation. So if you're constantly doing things out of obligation, again, might be a little bit of a mix match. So what do you do when you're trying to heal your sacral chakra? There's room here for more creativity. Whether that is even, something that I love to do is take pictures. Of course, you guys see my pictures. I love to put little words with pictures. I love to paint really kind of just randomly and flowing without necessarily a plan. I love to pay attention. Sometimes I'll just go on a walk and collect things or pick up leaves or just notice, I just want to kind of be aware. Moving is a great way to kind of get balance back to your sacral chakra. Dancing, moving, finding pleasure in things, even eating, like eating ice cream and tasting every single bite. Expressing yourself, making a video that no one sees, and just so you feel what it's like to say the things that are on your mind. Doing journaling, even if you rip it up right away. No one has to read anything you write. No one has to listen to anything you say, but just that practice of kind of letting it out and giving yourself permission to feel things. Our sacral chakra is very fiery, but at the same time, it's all about kind of flowing like water. So being next to a creek, listening to water, putting on noises, listening to rain, putting your feet in the pool. Those are all really good ways to kind of come back to that, the flow of your sacral chakra, that spark that you might be kind of missing. Your solar plexus chakra is above your belly button, and this is all about self-worth and boundaries and confidence and identity. And I know we can all relate to this idea of needing healthier boundaries in some area of your life because we're human and we want to help and we want to heal and we want to give, we want to show up and we don't want to hurt people's feelings. But in the long run, we do need to really think about whether or not that is more important than the way we feel when we don't honor that, because that's definitely going to take us back to that resentment piece. So in a solar plexus imbalance, which happens, again, these are all very common. It's normal to feel blocked and stuck and stagnant. And it's normal to kind of crave getting out of that block. So what does that actually look like in relationships if you're having a solar plexus chakra that's a little bit not flowing? It means that you are people pleasing. It means that when you people please and you wish you had said no, or you should have said no, and you should have honored yourself more, you are going to shrink and you are going to stay quiet to keep the peace. You are going to resent that later, which is not going to end up well because you are abandoning yourself in the process. So if you think about it as a parent or a partner, if you're taking on a lot of the emotional labor or you're feeling responsible for everyone, usually, someone who has an empathic heart, who's very intuitive, who is drained emotionally, who is feeling like, oh man, even if you don't know what your solar plexus chakra is, you know what it's like to be anticipating what other people are going to think or say or feel or need. And it's not bad to be in tuned, but at the same time, at what cost is what you kind of need to ask yourself. So at work, you're going to get really burned out if you're constantly saying yes. You might overfunction and you might deal with imposter syndrome because you're like, deep down, I know I should have said no, or deep down, I know I don't need to try to keep up with these people, or deep down, I know these aren't my strengths and I'm saying yes to this project or this proposal that I know is not really up my alley, but I don't want to let down the team. That is definitely all about your solar plexus chakra. And the way to heal that is boundaries. Telling the truth, saying no, reclaiming your identity and releasing the guilt, not feeling bad for saying no. not feeling bad for putting your own truth first. Like we really want to release that. And we all have work to do. I know, if you're listening to this, again, please know you're totally normal. There's nothing wrong with feeling any of this stuff, but we don't want to. We don't want to be abandoning ourselves every single day because we're worried about what other people will think or say or do because of that. So the next chakra is your heart chakra. And this is just such a, obviously the heart of things, the center of your body. And it's just such a way to kind of like do a little bit of a check-in with your love, with your grief, with your compassion, with your forgiveness. In relationships, if we have these kind of walls up, we're going to be looking at what it feels like to have a chakra imbalance in our heart. If we're loving with fear, if we're choosing unavailable partners, if we are recreating old wounds out of habit, if we're carrying family pain, if we're repeating generational patterns because we just don't want to break them, we don't know how to break them, we don't know what that looks like to break them. Again, it's not bad, but even giving as a parent or over giving, loving from worry instead of presence. These are all like really clear signs that you have a little bit of an imbalance in your heart chakra. And what are we going to do about it? How are you going to heal the heart? If you're constantly like giving to your kids, you're, of course, like your definition of good parenting is probably including like providing. But if you're giving to your kids, if you're giving to your students, if you're giving to your staff, if you're giving to your partner, if you're giving to your family members, but you feel resentful and angry and depleted because of it, that's where you kind of want to ask, like, wait a second, like, is this truly what I want to be doing? Does this truly feel right? And am I helping myself through this? So healing the heart chakra can come obviously like in a lot of different ways. We want to make sure that we are acting in a way that's compassionate towards ourselves. Opening up to safe people, using our intuition to know like this person does not deserve access to me, my energy, my insights, and allowing yourself to receive love, like true, genuine love. And if you don't know what that feels like or looks like, or that sounds weird, or you're like, I don't deserve it, or I don't, that's not for me, that's probably another kind of clear sign to show you that your heart's a little bit off and a little bit blocked. Again, no judgment. Your throat chakra is all about communication, truth, again, with the boundaries and expression. Boundaries, you can tell, are like a reoccurring theme for a lot of our chakras, because when we don't have them, we give access to every single part of us, and that is exhausting. If we are unable to express ourselves clearly and we are unable to speak our own truth, you can already kind of tell how those imbalances are going to show up in relationships. We're going to not express our needs. We're going to avoid conflict. We're going to shut down emotionally. We are going to explode after suppressing our truth. We all know what that feels like. If we have unexpressed resentment and we're carrying everything by ourselves, our heart chakra is not flowing in a way that is sustainable and beautiful in a way that we want it to. So if at work you're staying silent, you're not saying anything in meetings, you've decided, you're like, oh, I'm not going to speak my truth here. This isn't safe. I have nothing to say. I don't actually care. All of that stuff. Again, like you can tell the heart works with the throat, and the throat kind of like is connected to the sacral, and the sacral is connected to the root. They all are, are ours. They're all ours. So if you're kind of miscommunicating, or you're beating yourself up for what you did say, or you're not advocating for yourself, you say yes when every part of your body knows you should not do that. You should not take on that new project. You should absolutely not have that meeting after hours. There's no way you should meet with that client again. You know it in your body, but you still say yes. That, again, is self-abandonment. That's a little bit of an off feeling. We know what it feels like. That means your throat is not not operating the way you would like for it to. So what do you do to heal the throat? You talk honestly. You journal. You get all that shit out of your body and on the page, even if no one sees it, even if you never share. You speak your truth gently in a way that feels right, on your terms, in a tone that's yours, in an approach that's yours, in a calm way if that's your style. And you release the fear of being too much. And you don't say, oh, I'm not going to say that because they're going to think I'm dumb. Or I'm not going to express that because one time in a relationship 10 years ago, I said that and it was used against me. That's trauma. That's real talk. But at the same time, that's fear-based. So again, you kind of want to always check in with yourself to know, is this coming from a place of fear or coming from a place of love? And usually you know the answer. Your third eye chakra, oh my gosh, this is all about your intuition, your clarity, and your inner wisdom. So again, you can see how the chakras work together. If you're imbalanced in your third eye chakra, between your eyes, your intuitive center, you are ignoring red flags in a relationship. You are repeating familiar patterns and you are staying in confusion because it's what you know. Again, no judgment. As a parent, you're going to constantly second guess every single decision because you don't know if it's the noise, if it's what you should be doing, if it's what you've always done, if it's what your parents did, if it's what you did for one kid and it worked and now it's with this other child and you just aren't really sure. And your anxiety really does override your intuition because you're probably indecisive. You're not trusting your ideas. You're not sitting with yourself enough to even know what your ideas are. You're listening to the outside noise. And again, we all use ChatGPT or AI, I would imagine, for the most part, for something in our day. But if you're choosing to listen to that instead of yourself, that is another kind of red flag just for you when it comes to your own intuition. So get in silence. Sometimes it's really scary to sit in silence. I have a lot of clients who tell me, I don't want to be still with myself. I don't want to be alone with myself. I don't want to sit in stillness because I'm afraid of what's going to come up. That in itself means you probably need to. Meditation, journaling, like I said, intuitive practices, paying attention to your inner nudges, like really listening to yourself and acting on your intuition instead of your fear and your anxiety. And little ways throughout the day, like trying one thing differently is a good way to kind of practice that. Instead of doing this, try this and see how it goes, see how it feels. Your last chakra we're going to talk about today is your crown chakra. And this is all about being connected to something bigger than yourself, whether that's your truth, your own purpose, your meaning, your spirituality, your religious connection, your connection to your highest self, your spirit guides, family and spirit, loved ones. This is the crown. This is like the biggest kind of like, rise up. In a relationship, if your crown chakra is blocked, you are feeling lonely spiritually. You are feeling extremely disconnected. At work, lack of meaning, lack of purpose, burnout, longing for something deeper. You just kind of know, like, this is not sustainable. This is not me. This is not what I want. I'm feeling not connected. You feel lost. You feel like you don't have a purpose. And again, I feel like so many people are trying to find their way through this connection. So what do you do to heal your crown? You spend time in nature. That's always my biggest recommendation. Go sit on a rock, watch birds, slow down, pray, meditate. Connect to something bigger than yourself. Read a cool book, listen to a podcast, watch a YouTube video, find people. If you want to be around others, you don't have to, who are kind of doing the same work, interested in the same things. But a lot of the crown chakra is about you, like once you kind of feel like you know your purpose a little bit better, your connection a little bit stronger, then be open to kind of connecting to other people if you feel like it and if you want. So how do you overall balance your energy? This is not about perfection. It's about making small adjustments to return to you without the noise, to your own truth, your intuitive inner truth. listening to your own breathing, feeling your body, feeling your heart rate, like beat and rhythm, and know, oh, okay, I'm actually like in tune with my body. It's not about like fixing everything. It's not about, balancing every day and feeling perfect. It's not about being perfectly still even. Awareness is the first way to kind of know something's off. You actually just say it, like I'm off balance. I feel disconnected. I don't feel my self-worth. I'm not feeling very inspired or creative. So just kind of saying it is amazing. Like that's a beautiful first step. Breathing opens your channels. Like having crystals are great, but like actually using your breath is the most powerful thing. And moving. Stuck energy wants to move. Even if it's a walk, dancing, shaking, stretching, doing yoga if that's your vibe. Journaling is actually movement. Releasing your words into the world. Your truth wants to get out of your body, and your throat chakra wants to open up and wants to have you release your words. Having boundaries, again, just kind of like sitting with that. What does that look like? And learning, not saying you're a dumbass, you should have done this, you should have had a better boundary, you need to be better about that, but just kind of being aware again, like sitting with your truth. Oh, you know what? Boundaries actually open my heart because they're letting me love myself. Boundaries are love. Creativity, pleasure, this is what is going to kind of like bring that joy back, and joy is medicine. And sometimes we don't remember that joy is medicine. So again, that's another beautiful way to kind of just overall feel balanced. Return to your safety, return to your slowness, return to your root, get still, you let your intuition rise, and be really compassionate towards yourself through all of this. You're not going to be perfect. You do not need to be perfect. You're just supposed to be you. And that is the perfect way, I think, to end this, is that you want to be you. That's the ultimate way to heal. That's the ultimate way to have a lifelong loving relationship with yourself, is that you really just learn how to feel, to be aware. You learn how to be you, to breathe into yourself, to trust yourself again, to return to your mind, your heart, your body, all of the things that we talk about all the time. So that was a lot. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for doing this work because it helps everybody. And thank you for choosing yourself in such big ways and small ways. Until we talk again, have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.